I never believed that a single piece of paper could destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. But it did. When I was 17, a girl tried to give me a letter, and I didn't take it. I said one simple thing: "Can it wait?" And she smiled, like it didn't matter. But it did, because 10 years later I found that same letter, unopened, still with my name on it. And when I finally read it, I realized something that changed everything I believed about love, timing, and regret. Because sometimes the biggest moments in your life don't happen when you notice them. They happen when you ignore them. And by the time you understand that, it's already too late. I never believed that silence could change a life. I used to think silence was just nothing. Empty space between words, between people, between moments that didn't matter. But I was wrong. Silence can grow. It can stretch. It can bury things so deep you don't even realize they existed. My name is Ethan, and I only understood that years after I lost something I never even knew I had lost. It started when I came back to my hometown after 10 years away. I told myself it was just business, a short visit, 2 or 3 days at most. I even planned the hotel in advance, like I could control how I would feel. But the moment the train stopped and I stepped onto the platform, I already knew I was lying to myself. Everything looked the same. But not really. The same old station, the same cracked benches, the same smell of metal, dust, and rain. But I wasn't the same person who left. I walked through the town slowly, not because I wanted to, but because my body didn't know where else to go. And somehow, without planning it, I ended up in front of my old school. It looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I had just grown into someone it no longer recognized. The gates were open. That alone felt strange. I hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. And instantly, everything came back. The noise of students, the chaos of breaks, the shouting, the laughter, the stress before exams. But now, there was only silence. A caretaker was sitting near the entrance, reading something on her phone. She looked up at me immediately. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I studied here," I said. "A long time ago." She looked me over carefully. "Alumni usually don't come back." "I didn't plan to," I admitted. "I just found myself here." She nodded slowly, like she understood more than she said. "Don't damage anything. Some rooms are still closed." I smiled slightly. "I won't." But I already knew I wasn't here for the building. I was here for something I couldn't explain. I walked through the corridors slowly. Every step echoed like I was disturbing something that had been asleep for years. Lockers still had scratches from students carving their names. Old posters still faded on the walls. And then I stopped in front of a classroom. 11B. My class. My hand touched the door without thinking. And suddenly I wasn't 30 anymore. I was 17. And she was there. Lily. The girl who never tried to stand out, but somehow always did. She sat 2 rows ahead of me, slightly turned toward the window, always writing something in the margins of her notebook. I remember one day she turned around and said, "You always look like you're somewhere else." And I laughed. Maybe I am. She smiled slightly. Where? I didn't answer. I didn't know yet that the place I was looking at was her. There were so many moments between us that never became anything. Almost conversations. Almost invitations. Almost confessions. One time after class, she stopped me near the door. "Ethan," she said softly. I turned. "Yeah." She held my notebook in her hands. "You forgot this." "Oh, thanks." She didn't give it back immediately. She just looked at me. "Do you ever actually write what you think?" she asked. I shrugged. "Not really." "That's a shame," she said. "You have interesting thoughts." Then she handed it back and walked away, and I stood there longer than I should have, just staring at where she had been. But I never followed her. That's the pattern of my life back then. Always noticing. Never acting. The memory broke when I heard footsteps behind me. It was the caretaker. "I thought I told you not to open closed rooms," she said, half joking. "This one wasn't closed," I said. She looked at the classroom sign. "That room has a lot of memories for people." I almost laughed. Not for me, apparently. But she didn't respond. And that silence felt heavier than words. I left the classroom and continued walking until I reached the archive room. I don't know why I went there. Maybe instinct. Maybe guilt I hadn't named yet. Inside were dusty boxes stacked like forgotten lives. Student records. Old exams. Event photos. And then I saw it. A box labeled Class 11B. My hands froze for a second. I shouldn't have opened it. But I did. Inside was everything from that year. And then something caught my eye. An envelope. Small. Faded. With my name written on it. Ethan. My heartbeat changed immediately, because I recognized the handwriting before my mind accepted it. "Lily," I whispered. "No way." The caretaker noticed my reaction. "You found something important?" "I think—" My voice stopped for a second. "I think I did." I opened it carefully. And suddenly the room wasn't dusty anymore. It was quiet in a different way, like time itself had stopped. Inside was a single sheet of paper, and I started reading. "Ethan, I don't know how to say this to you in person, so I'm writing it here. I like you. I think I have for a long time. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to know before we leave school. If you don't feel the same, it's okay. I just hope we still talk like before." "Lily," I stopped. "Read it again. And again." My hands started shaking. "She gave me this?" I whispered. The caretaker frowned. "What is it?" "It's from someone I knew." She nodded slowly. "If it was in this box, it probably wasn't delivered personally. Sometimes students leave things in offices before graduation." I shook my head. "No. She tried to give it to me." And suddenly I remembered it. That moment. The hallway. Her voice. "Ethan, wait." Me not stopping. Me saying, "Can it wait?" Her hesitation. Her silence after. My stomach dropped. Because it wasn't lost. It was delayed. And delay was enough. I sat down without realizing it, because my legs didn't feel stable anymore. The caretaker quietly said, "You okay?" But I couldn't answer, because my mind was somewhere else entirely. 10 years ago, the last week of school, the sun through the windows, students running around screaming about freedom, and her standing there with something in her hand, trying one last time, and me walking away, like it didn't matter, when in reality, it was everything. I stayed in that room for a long time, long enough for the caretaker to leave and come back, long enough for dust to settle differently, long enough for me to understand something I didn't want to accept. Some moments don't break loudly. They just quietly disappear while you're not looking. When I finally stood up, I asked, "Do you know what happened to her?" The caretaker thought for a moment. "She graduated. I remember she was a quiet girl. Then I think she moved abroad. Family relocation, maybe. Do you have an address?" She shook her head. "No. That was years ago. Years ago." As if that explained everything. As if time erased responsibility. I left the school with the letter in my hand, and I couldn't stop thinking, what if I had read this sooner? What if I had stopped? What if I had just turned around? That night I didn't sleep. I searched everything. Old classmates. Old social media traces. Anything. And slowly I found fragments. She went abroad. Canada, maybe. Lost contact. Not sure. Everything uncertain. Everything gone. Like she had been a chapter the world decided to close without me. Before I left town, I went back one last time. The school was empty again. The sky was turning orange, and I stood in the courtyard where we used to wait for classes to start. I closed my eyes, and I said, "I'm sorry," not because I thought she could hear me, but because I needed to say it out loud once. Then I placed the letter back into the archive box, not because I wanted to erase it, but because I finally understood something simple. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. They are meant to be understood too late. And as I walked away, I realized something that hurt more than anything else. She didn't disappear from my life. I just never reached hers in time.